get YouTube started. In theory, YouTube is running. And so we begin the show with me saying, I'm so confused. I don't know what to think. Politics is so confusing. Let's figure it out. Oh, it's loud. From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary, at the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the Triangle Talk Show. Episode 43. I'm going to call this one Fairness. We'll figure out why. February 4th, 2019. Title of the program, How Old? How Bad? How Sure? And I'm Gary Pierce. I'm the show Snowflake. And here with me is, once again, Elizabeth Crudup. Oh, I've left steering committee on your title. That's not really what we're talking about today, is it?
No, not today.
Not doing the steering committee, but we're stuck with that for now. I'll get rid of all those for a little bit. How old? How bad? How sure? I just got back from a week of skiing. Had a great time. I was out in Utah. The weather was perfect, blue skies, decent amount of snow, and had 4 3/4 great days of skiing. And then somebody crashed into me as I was going down the hill and didn't break anything, but made a few things hurt. So it was kind of wiped out that last day. But I had a good time, paying almost no attention to what was going on in the world. Just ski, eat, go to bed, sleep, get up the next day and ski. Had a great time. And then I get back to this Ralph Northam thing, the Virginia governor who has been accused of some, well, I'm not sure what. I'm not sure how to describe it. There's this picture appeared in his yearbook from 1984. This is his yearbook page. That's for those of you that are listening, once again, compelling audio. But we're looking. You've probably seen these pictures. I've got a nice picture of him. I should let you say hello.
Hi, how's everyone doing? Looking forward to talking.
Where are my manners?
It's interesting. Yeah.
Where are my manners? My mom did not raise me right. All right, so back to the. And I really wanted you to be on the show because. My impressions of what's going on come from an old white man, and I needed somebody to provide, I don't know, balance or feedback, or at least something to help me get out of my old white man head.
I think right now that the outrage should be universal, regardless of race. When any single race is put down. Yeah. The outrage should be universal, Well, let's figure that out, but let's. And I think most people know the story, but as a show, you kind of have to go into the story a little bit to explain things. So there's this Governor Ralph Northam, who I was completely unaware of, paid no attention to his career, didn't know he was the Virginia governor until this thing came about. So on his the yearbook from his medical school. So it wasn't a high school yearbook. It was late college. He was 25 years old. This is from 1984. And, there's the nice picture of him all posed and everything. There's a picture of him standing, with his leg or his foot up on something, wearing Western stuff and a Western hat. Picture of him, with looks like a Corvette behind him. And then there's the picture that everyone is all freaked out about, and that is a picture of him, a picture that purports to be him, and another person, and we don't know which is which, and he's saying that he isn't either one of them now. One of them, one of them is in a Klan, Ku Klux Klan costume, the big pointy dunce cap. And the other is a white person in blackface. And how would you describe
the clothing that he's wearing? Is it
I guess they call it dandy. I think that kind of style was called to use the, it's a dandy N-word. That's what that look is.
Okay, got a white fedora.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to tell about the hair. The picture's not great resolution. The makeup is really black. Looks like he's got sunglasses on. A dark blazer, a white shirt, bow tie. Looks like a polka dot bow tie.
The classic bow tie with the black coat.
Yep, and then checkered pants. That we would make fun of a white man wearing that on the golf course. We'd make fun of anybody wearing it on a golf course, but it looks to me like golf course clothing. So that's what the black person is wearing, or the person with the blackface makeup on. They're in a room that looks like, could be a hotel room, could be a dorm room, could be a house. Can't really see very much of it. There's a couch behind them. There's drapes covering a window on part of the picture. The rest of the wall is just bare. And there's a little round end table or coffee table or something that's just barely off to the side of the picture. You don't get much context from it. They're both holding cans of something that is probably going to be beer. Can't really tell. Can't read the labels. And then underneath is the quote that is not necessarily tied to the picture, but it says there's more old drunks than old doctors in this world, so I think I'll have another beer. It's a very Brett Kavanaghian things to say. Okay. So that is the picture that has everybody outraged. And by everybody, I mean everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. That picture is outrage worthy. That picture is outrage worthy. And all the other pictures on that page were him in specific.
Right. There's no question those are him, and he has acknowledged that he sent those pictures to the yearbook committee to put in. And yesterday, or was it the day before, he said he came on and made a video that says he apologized for the blackface in the Klan picture.
I remember him doing that. Yeah. I actually remember that was the first, I saw him apologizing for that. And then a few days later, we got that second apology.
Yeah, just a day later. And he said at a press conference, and he said it's not him. He had a chance to look at it in more depth. He said he had never bought the yearbook, so he had never seen it until this came up.
Then what was he apologizing for? If it really wasn't him and he'd never seen it, what was that first thing? What did they just stick him in front of a mic and say, read this? What did he see that made him feel he had to issue that first apology?
Yeah. A really good question. At the very minimum, he is guilty of totally mishandling everything.
Absolutely. If he'd have come clean from the get-go, because right now he looks like, what do you call it? A Donald Trump. He's really speaking
he looks like sounds like a politician.
He's sounding so political, but this is more than about politics, about dignity and dignity of an entire race and dignity denied an entire race of people. And the time period we're talking about, I had to go back and just, clarify when blackface started and wearing blackface and what it meant or symbolized. And, from it just being where they would not hire African Americans to work in the theater, they would put white actors in blackface to portray black characters. And then somebody developed that character of, I think I'm going to use, these are the terms being used. These are not my terms. This is what was used to describe what we're looking at.
Sure.
That black-faced Caucasian in the plaid pants and the tight black coat and the hat. That type of that look, that all put together look there was now used to describe, I think they called it a dandified coon or something like that, something really ugly like that. So it was a definite statement when you did blackface with that entire outfit put together. You are not saying anything nice about anybody. You are not trying to portray anything positive about any culture or any African American culture. It's a particular airheaded, always smiling, always laughing around, doesn't have too much sense kind of personality is what you were indicating when you put on that entire getup like that. And that is highly inappropriate. You knew what you were doing when you dressed up like that. You knew what you were trying to say, you know.
And that goes back to the early days of film, Al Jolson,
yep,
and vaudeville theater, and maybe legitimate theater. This picture is not from that era. This picture is from the mid '80s.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard people say because there's going to be some attempt to justify cluelessness because of the age. And people will say, this is not from the mid-1950s, it's from the mid-1980s. The mid-1980s is more woke.
Exactly. And
people should have been more aware.
This is right after the Civil Rights Movement. I know he was there for the Civil Rights Movement. He was there.
Yeah.
You know, he knew exactly what he was doing. Yeah. I do not know if he chose to be the Klansman or the black-faced person, but they knew they were saying something really ugly to an entire race.
You're willing to state that you think this is him in the picture and his denials are false? He's one of them.
He's definitely, and he knows which one he is. That's the thing. Not only is he one of them, he knows which one he is. And that's why he came out with a straight apology. He said, I have to make this right immediately and apologize. And I think his handler someone misadvised him, some attorney somewhere. Attorneys are good at the spin. Attorney advised him too little, too late, and said, they can't prove it. They can't prove it. But he's already accepted that he did it. So
yeah, I've watched The West Wing enough to know how much background stuff has gone on that we don't get to see.
And I am so, but then I kept going. Is this false outrage? The scene is horrible. It is terrible. It is bad. It is bad. But the level of outrage is like the Democratic Party chooses which act of racial indignity it will react towards, instead of just banning all types of racism, banning all types of situations, or not tolerating any type of situation that would diminish another person, another human being, because of their race or sexual orientation or gender identification, instead of denying it all. In North Carolina, we had Democrats, liberals, or I think anyone with any decency, cheering and pulling down the Silent Sam statue. And then we have the governor of North Carolina showing up in Harnett County and saying, yes, we need to put it in Harnett County. He's not opposed to it standing in Harnett County. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I thought the Democrats were all for tearing it down, all for ending all of that. Then why does the governor of North Carolina now come tell us, oh, I'm not opposed to it? What is he telling us? Do we need to hear him?
That drifts us off the subject a little bit, and I don't mind doing that, because that goes into the question of, well, do we make all that history go away, or do we put it in a place where it can have context? Now, if you put it in Harnett County, maybe you're just trying to put it someplace where the people will be more accepting of it than in Chapel Hill.
So are you saying that we should let racial degradation exists in Harnett County because people are more accepting, and that's the same. That's come to the Virginia question.
That's where you live, so you know the folks around you more than I do.
I'm like, should we let it? Sure. I'm like, there has been no outcry, no outrage, no. You haven't even had a peep or a whisper that North Carolina government is willing to re-erect Silent Sam that wasn't raised to remember Confederate soldiers. It was raised to show the African American that we will get you. In fact, the person who did the opening speech ceremony celebrated how he personally just whipped an African American woman until her skirts hang around her ankles. He said, yeah, just a couple of days ago, or I just whipped so and so right over there. That is what a Silent Sam is. But this person dresses up as the governor of the governor of Virginia, puts on blackface, and we're tearing down the governor's mansion in Virginia. We're saying, get out, pack your bags, leave.
Well, some people are.
And that's for something he did in 1984. This is 2019. How selective is our outrage? Are we going to be outraged?
So you're upset that we're going back only as far as 1984 to be outraged, but we're not being outraged by going back into the early part of the 20th century when Silent Sam was erected.
No, we're not being outraged by acts in 2019.
Oh, because we're talking about putting it back.
Exactly.
Is moving it to a battlefield and adding where it's never been before, where there aren't current Confederate monuments, putting it someplace and adding context, is that celebrating it?
Yes, it is. Because if you're going to tell the Silent Sam story, if you're going to tell the Confederate story, tell all of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying about putting it in context.
Yes, you've got to tell all of it. You've got to tell and show all of it. Don't make it sound like it was a great big, Boy Scout rebellion. These guys revolted against the United States of America. Why should they be celebrated in any form? Outside of, why should we even consider them in our public spaces?
How do you remember it without celebrating it? And I'm not saying we can't. I'm not saying you have to celebrate it by remembering it. I'm just saying what specific steps do you take that remember and don't celebrate?
Do like they do Black History. Put it in a book. Talk about it 1 week in February and leave it there. Or 1 week in whatever Confederate month they want to put, and like they do about the Spanish-American War and every other battle.
So you are not accepting that as an adequate amount of Black history, and I think your tongue is a little bit in your cheek when you're saying accept that as an adequate amount of Confederate history.
Yep, just take it. I mean, everything else is just, everything else is not talked about. The horrors of slavery, the way it devastated the African American for generations.
Well, we are finally talking about it.
We don't want to finally talk about it. We want to continually talk about it.
Well, by finally, I don't mean we're done with it. And I'm not saying, okay, we've admitted it, it's over and done. I'm saying that it is now the main part of the public discourse. We're saying that, yeah, that happened. And that will be in the history books and taught in the classes. But should some physical manifestations of it, some of these statues, and I wouldn't say all of them, but some of them, still be somewhere where people can go see them? People 20, 30, 50 years from now.
Will the slave be next to that Confederate soldier? Will his scars or her scars, will the mother wailing as her child is ripped from her arms? I
would hope so.
Will it stand next to that Confederate soldier, or are we going to have some kind of false glory of what a Confederate was?
Yeah, I would say next to it, in front of it, and bigger.
That's what I'm saying. If you're going to tell the story, tell it all.
Right.
tell it all.
Put it
you
in
know?
that's what I'm saying about putting it in context.
Yeah.
This picture from Northam's I keep wanting to say website, from from his yearbook.
Yeah.
That there's no celebration to be had there. There's no memorial, no anything. I'm trying to think of what where I was at that era. I was I think a little bit older than he was. I was in 1984. I was 34. I was working in the television business in Chicago. I was a suburban type liberal, although back then I was actually living downtown. But I was your basic white suburban liberal, not very engaged type person. But I would look at, this is an era where Jesse Jackson was running for president, and I thought that was kind of a joke at the time.
Could I ask you why you felt it was a joke?
Because I wasn't very tuned into the things he was saying. I thought it was a spoiler candidacy. And again, this for me is a long time ago, and my memory's not great of it. I wish I could give you read to you an essay that I wrote to myself or to anyone that said, "Here's how I feel about things." Here in 1984, dear Gary of the future, here's how I feel about things. I can't do that because I didn't write it down. I have vague memories of it. That's
where I'll say there is this shroud of ignorance associated with white privilege.
Oh, it definitely came from a position of white privilege.
Exactly.
And I'm pretty sure so is everything that Northam has been saying.
Exactly. And that's what it is. He's like, for his time, that wasn't a big deal, or people didn't see it as a big deal. And when he says people, he means white people.
Exactly.
But he said, as soon as someone explained it to him, he was like, "Oh, really?" So he had that shroud of ignorance pulled. Do we condemn him for being ignorant for a while? But only if he owns it. We can't, fix what wasn't, what he's denying.
Yeah. And it sounds like he has owned it.
Because I guess someone told him, well, the most popular African American of the time, of almost all time, is Michael Jackson. Say you are Michael Jackson, And I'm like, for some reason, we cannot see that picture of him as Michael Jackson. He didn't even try and do a moonwalk, just show us like, hey, he was supposed to have been so good that he won the talent competition. But
so is it racist? Is it offensive for a white person to dance like Michael Jackson? Let's say without the shoe polish.
That's the outrage. Michael Jackson was a good artist, a phenomenal musician. Race, no race, bar none, whatever, doesn't matter. He was the best. Is it wrong to imitate the best because his skin color is different from yours? Or this is a conundrum. Or do you imitate him without celebrating his color? Do you leave that part of him out when you celebrate Michael Jackson?
Yeah, and again in 1984, not 2019.
Exactly. So it's a real conundrum because you have lots of people having plastic surgery to enhance their lips or tan their skin, and I think Kim Kardashian really looks like she's not she has no African American blood in her, but she tans herself well enough that she looks just as dark as her mixed race children. And you go, do you condemn her for what she's doing, or do you say, oh, that's beautiful? But when you go to the extent of the blackface, we go, oh, that's too much. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe I would go like, come on. He was portraying a particular caricature,
If it was him, and I'm still not sure myself.
Oh, I think he's pretty sure. He seems to be someone who otherwise would be upfront with people, and he came out upfront. His first instinct was to apologize for it. He would not be apologizing. There is nobody who would walk around apologizing for committing such a hateful act if they hadn't done it. That is a horrible thing to own up to. And he owned up to it right off the bat. He may be backpedaling now to try and spin it, but too late. He saw himself, he knew himself, and when the question came up, his attorney told him, shut up, say it wasn't you. So I think we are hearing his attorney speaking now. We're not hearing the governor.
I watched the whole press conference. I watched his address that he recorded and put out, and with the apology. And then I watched the whole press conference. Before I watched the press conference, my attitude was, he's just another lip flapping politician that is going to backpedal and spin and dance and to appropriate another black cultural phrase, shuck and jive.
Yep.
And then I watched the press conference and I didn't see that. Now I have heard people describe on some of the cable news shows, I have heard people describe the press conference as a disaster.
Yes. For me, it was a shuck and jive. When you have to turn around and ask your wife, who was I? You know, who was I? For me, I was like, oh, so you're not even sure who it is that you're owning up to now.
Okay,
you know, that for me killed it. When he turned around and said, what's the name of that singer? I was like, But you were sure of the other picture. Okay. No one needed to proxy him for the other one, you know?
And I think that what we're seeing here is our very different backgrounds.
Yes.
Because I looked at that news conference and saw someone who is less politician-like than I expected by quite a bit. As I think I put in my quick text to you, that someone without a lot of guile, someone who seems to have been speaking, unless he's a really good actor, someone who is speaking from someplace in his heart. Now he's a politician.
I think what we saw was fear. He was about to lose it all. He worked very hard to be governor. I think
he may be in denial too.
Yep, he was losing it all, and that's what he saw. He saw his kingdom, his empire, his effort crumbling around him in a single moment.
So, you would say it was an act.
I won't say I don't know even if you want to call it an act. It was an act. It's a very poorly written play. Very poorly written. They need to go back to the other producer, director, and just tell them, look, could you switch a couple of lines here? Yeah. Because nobody's taking this, this is.
And a bald-faced lie.
Oh, yeah. He lied. He that second, he should have left it as such. He should have left it and let people debate whether he's the Klansman or the black-faced person. Let people debate that to pieces and let it blow on and die. But now he has gone and thrown fuel and grease and everything else into the fire. That fire was just burning a little bit. Now he's just gone and just created an inferno, and it might just consume him.
So the press conference was in two parts. His written statement, which I saw as not the worst written statement I've ever seen. Awkward, but it didn't look that bad to me. And then the Q&A. And that's where he seemed most authentic to me. And this is the one thing that seems to get hit on the cable news all the time is when he talked about putting a little shoe polish on his cheeks when he was doing the Michael Jackson thing. And here's where everybody on cable news and I are highly divergent, at least for now, because I saw him explaining that the way I would honestly try to explain something that had happened to me.
He was explaining something. Was he explaining the Michael Jackson thing? No. I think he was inadvertently explaining away how he was the blackface person. He explained how he put that shoe polish on his face.
Well,
okay, that's why it came out as authentic, because he was confessing to something.
What he said was
that honestly confessing to something.
what he said was that the reason he was talking about the blackface with Michael Jackson was because that was a vivid, clear memory of that era. And that if he had dressed up either as the Klansman or the blackface person next to him, he would have remembered that. And now if you're going to say, well, all you're doing is lying anyway, you did it and you remember it and now you're denying it. Well,
could he, anyone who has danced to a Michael Jackson song and danced so well to it that you won a competition, one thing Michael Jackson people do is show off that moonwalk.
And I think he was about to, and his wife stopped him.
Oh, I'm just saying he didn't do it. He couldn't even name the song that was playing.
Oh, let me put you.
Wouldn't you remember the moment when you won a competition? You say it was Beat It. It was, something. You'd name a song and say that was the moment I won this thing. I carried this thing. Yeah. But no, it became an situation. This was the king of pop we're talking about. This wasn't just any old singer.
Okay.
This wasn't any old group. So
I was gonna to try to put you in the position of being in a press conference and try to remember what it was you were trying to say with all that pressure. But you just did that with the Women's March, and you did a very good job. So.
Oh my gosh, I was terrified. Yeah. Written statement prepared, and but then you go to what you know and what's natural to you.
You could have dropped an important. You could have dropped a specific fact and not been able to quite remember one thing like that. It could happen. When we were parsing his performance.
It's the only thing you're talking about. It's not like he had a litany of things that he had to address in that particular conference. That was it. That was why he was standing there, was to talk about this one situation. He couldn't remember one. Then maybe we've got other problems other than, blackface going on. He couldn't remember the one thing. But the people of Virginia, I don't know. Because now they have this person, and I think they tried it with Keith Ellison. Also, they brought up, a woman saying that, Keith Ellison beat me up, dragged me out of bed. But no, please, make sure you vote for him. I don't think they saw that section coming. And now they're doing it for the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Oh, this woman says that he raped, and you have to give credence to her voice, but I'd love to hear her voice, not someone else reporting.
Okay, so now we're talking about Justin Fairfax, the Lieutenant Governor.
Fairfax, yep.
Yeah, and the idea is they have a black Lieutenant Governor. So initially, everybody was saying, well, wouldn't it be poetic justice if Northam steps down? It looks like impeachment is not going to happen because this is not a high crime or misdemeanor. This is just a big, stupid thing to do. Yeah. So if he were to step down, he would be replaced by his black Lieutenant Governor. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be poetic justice? Until Fairfax gets slapped with a sex discrimination charge.
Now, this is where tables turn, because that image of an African-American male as a violent rapist without boundaries, doesn't know their own mind kind of thing is also extremely racist. Whoever brought this sex charge out, if it's not the victim herself, more power to her. If it's not the victim herself, if it's just another organization, they're just as bad as the coon dressing, black-faced, Ku Klux Klan robe-wearing pair. They are just as bad and should be condemned with just as much vehemence, because you cannot now go and say it's more acceptable to society to believe a black man is violent, and doesn't accept boundaries, and that's what you're going to put in there. It's more unquestionable. No one is, saying, it's more unquestionable say, oh no, that's more likely to have happened than for this doctor, well-educated person to remember whether he put on a Ku Klux Klan outfit or a, a coon outfit, black-faced. It's more acceptable for that. It will be remiss on America if we took the sexual assault allegation without question, but were willing to cast doubt on the governors. I'm like, who, they say don't shoot the messenger, but let's check the messenger out now. Let's check that messenger out now, because what seemed to be, oh my gosh, look what this governor did, looks to be, this is a good way to hurt the Democrats and take power. This is a good way to take away public confidence in the Democratic Party platform in preparation for 2020. Let's guarantee Trump 2020 by bringing out these ugly things. When Fairfax, because remember, these were hard-fought elections. These were not easy elections. Fairfax's election was to the grit. It was a hard-fought election. We here in North Carolina were actually phone banking for Fairfax. I was one of the people who was actually on the phone saying people go out and vote in Virginia. It wasn't an easy election. If this allegation was true, if it was like a real sustainable thing, it would have come out then.
So is Virginia like North Carolina, where the lieutenant governor and the governor are not on a ticket together?
Exactly.
They're separate?
Exactly. They both have to be elected separately. And that was a battle. Those were not victories easily won. They were not. It was a neighbor knocking on neighbor's door. If there was a hair out of place on Fairfax, we would have known it. I'm not saying he didn't have a bad breakup situation or whatever situation. I'm not diminishing the lady's voice who is making the accusation, but I'd love to hear from her. I don't want to hear some cheesy reporter's spin on what her truth is.
So you were saying a moment ago that maybe people were believing Northam a little too easily, and I don't think anybody's believing him except maybe me.
I mean, they're out there. Even first I was like, you know what? Maybe it wasn't him, but then it didn't add up. The more he kept talking, the more he condemned himself. If it said one sentence, maybe 3 sentences, and shut up, fine. But it looks like he has to keep weaving and keep spinning and keep weaving and keep spinning. And you're like, no, this is, no, sir, you put on one of those clothes and you just have to, the way you're talking is like you were the black-faced one. The way you can describe shoe polish removal from skin, he can describe to you how difficult it is to remove shoe polish
That's a good
from
point.
Skin.
He should only have known that after the first time.
Thank you. So he's letting things slip out here and there. And you're going, man, you did. You just, just that's yours. Yeah. Please own.
I discovered how difficult makeup was to remove after a junior high school play. And when I was told, no, you should have put cold cream underneath that stuff, you're going to have a real hard time getting it off. It was a white clown makeup, and it was really hard to get off.
Oh, yeah.
The only other time I tried makeup was a Halloween in the late 80s, and I was going as the devil and put red makeup all over my face. But I did a test. I bought the makeup at the Halloween shop, and I tested putting it on and taking it off, and discovered that apparently between the early 1960s and the late 1980s, they'd made some improvements in makeup. Otherwise, I don't have a lot of experience with it. I'm guessing you all do.
No, I'm saying it gets to a point. There's certain details you would only know if you had done something. Yeah. Someone can describe it to you, but there's certain intricacies that you would only know if you described it. Because I bet you he had a time taking all that black shoe polish off his face and hands. He had a time doing it. And it sounds, the way he's talking is, he sounds like he'd done it more than one time. That's a lot of shoe polish.
I'm going to say I think you're reading a lot into a little, but everyone's doing it, But the entire Democratic establishment is calling on him to resign. There's nobody in his corner.
The Democratic establishment has such that's why I kept talking about false outrage. False outrage.
So you think they're just covering their political butts, not?
I think so. I think they really don't give two hoots whether the African Americans receive equal treatment or are treated with dignity. The Democratic Party, and that's why we're really trying to fight for reform from within the party. You know, we are one type of party on paper and another type of party in actuality. You know, and that is the sadness. That brings us to the SEC meeting in North Carolina. I think that for me is the most recent and best example.
Okay, so we can talk about that a little bit, because that was the activity that took you away from the Women's March.
Oh yes, it was
last weekend, which seems now to me like 6 or 7 months ago. But
no. The Women's March is something phenomenal. I don't know how to describe it. It's just a phenomenal movement of empowerment and acceptance and sisterhood. I really hated I couldn't be there for the whole thing. The SEC meetings where I was down in Charlotte.
So explain what the initials SEC and what that group is again.
Okay, this is the State Executive Committee, which is a room full of delegates from all over North Carolina, Democratic Party delegates coming together to represent each delegate carries a certain weight, I guess, or certain represents a certain number of 100 Democrats or whatever it is per voting area, and they're really carrying everybody's voice into one area so we could form our state platform to be all-inclusive of all thoughts and all voices. So we're not having just a dictatorship, but a democratic process by which we form our platform, and then with this platform is what we use to ask our elected officials to turn this platform into policy.
Okay, so this meeting was purely platform.
Now, this meeting was special because it's where we also get to elect the chair of the august body, the council, which is the chair, vice chair, first vice, second vice, third vice chair, secretary, treasurer. You know, the governing of that executive committee
of the Democratic Party.
Of the Democratic Party
for the state of North Carolina.
Yes.
So you're electing the leadership of the party.
Yes.
And you are hammering out a platform.
Yes. So
And this is done by delegates that are coming from precincts.
Yeah, they're coming from precincts. No, these are coming from county elections and congressional district elections. You know, the county will elect. They have a certain number of members allotted to the SEC, and then the congressional district has a certain number of people allotted to the SEC, and then you have a few at-large SEC seats. Plus all the elected officials, all the statewide elected officials, like Secretary of State, whatever, governor's office, all those are all members of the SEC, anyone who has statewide influence.
And they all have voting privileges.
They have voting privileges.
It sounds somewhere between a hodgepodge and a hot mess.
Oh, no, we have fun. We actually accomplish a lot.
I'm not saying it's not fun. I'm just saying
they have the very important task of forming our platform and making sure our platform is congruent with our standards as a Democratic Party.
Which itself is sort of a hot mess. I mean, I'm going to go back to the old joke that says, are you a member of the organized political party? No, I'm a Democrat. Okay, so how did it go?
Working on it.
That's an old joke.
This is what got me. Leading up to the SEC meeting, both our chair and our vice chair were admittedly guilty of some really, really big situations which we could not, should not have been tolerated. Who
were they?
Wayne Goodwin, who's now the chair, he ran unopposed, even though we know that he took almost $500,000 of questionable money from someone who's tax evading. The party ended up with, laundering about $500,000 worth of cash.
Is this something we need to say alleged so that we don't get sued, or has he been convicted of it?
He's not. I mean, we have the when money comes into the party, you have to state who gave it to you, what they do, where they got that. They have to. There's a kind of a paper trail where they have to state it. So this is all on the records. It's not something that we have to question anymore. They have to do the report to the campaign finance, the North Carolina State Board of Elections campaign finance, and we can use the word alleged, but it's there in black and white. He did it.
So I'm not familiar with the situation.
Okay, just know that he did.
Give me the Cliff Notes version.
Cliff Notes version. This person offered the Republican Party that money.
The Republican Party.
The Republican Party. As soon as the Republican Party found it was dirty, they donated the amount in total to a nonprofit, organization for their benefit. They got it out of the Republican Party quick. The Democrats, this person said, oh, okay, this is not working like I wanted to. The Democrats were offered that same money through Wayne Goodwin. And this is a person who is under FBI, the donor is under FBI investigation for tax evasion and all that kind of stuff.
What's his name?
I have his name. I'll have to pull it up real quick. But when he found out, when Wayne found out the money was dirty, Wayne kept the money.
Personally or on behalf of the party?
On behalf of the party. Just cleaning us out. Let me see. Just giving us calm. I know the Republicans are going to use it. When the time is right, they will bring it up. But I can pull it up.
In what way was the money dirty?
We don't. Where did he get it from? That's the question. Where did he get it? His name is Greg. Hold on, I can see it right here.
I have this trouble all the time when I'm trying to pull up something real fast on the web. It never comes.
Yeah. Greg Lindbergh.
Okay, so who
Greg
is he?
Lindbergh, if you Google him up real quick, Greg Lindbergh and potentially tainted money in the NCGOP, which is the Republican, and the NCDP, which is the Democrats. Greg Lindbergh, Chatham County connection and state connection. Lindbergh, Lindberg.
Let's see. Here's the first story I'm pulling up. This is from the News and Observer.
Oh, yeah.
Federal grand jury investigating a Durham businessman who is the NCGOP's biggest donor, and this is from just last October.
Oh, yeah.
So, Will Doran story in the News and Observer. Make that big thing get out of the way. I hate the way websites are working these days.
Aha.
Okay, Greg Lindbergh given millions of dollars to the GOP in the past few years, largely in support of Governor Dan Forest. This is sounding a little familiar.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he gave money to the Democratic Party as well.
Yes.
That's not in this story, not so far.
Yes,
anyway.
it is. Well, it says so right there. Come back down. You've gone too far up. Right, stop. Right there it says... right here, it says he has also given money to the state Democratic Party.
Oh, okay. There we are.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Now so what is?
We knew that was just bad. We had to do the same thing the NCGOP did, was get the money out of the party, which we did not. So usually what would happen is that the party would be outraged, SEC members
more
would
outrage.
say, can't take this, forget this, let's put someone else to run and remove, because a lot of party chairs have been removed for a whole lot less, but they did nothing. We all just spoke in murmurs about the Lindbergh thing, but nobody stood up and said, I'm going to run against Wayne. Okay, in fact, the one person who wanted to run for office, what she did now is that, that fake outrage, the first vice, her sin was she helped a fellow Democrat in a primary, which you're not allowed to do, you're not supposed to do, but it's done so rampantly. I don't think she thought she was going to be called out and condemned.
The party should be neutral in primaries.
Exactly, but they're not so neutral. Pushka, when the rubber meets the road, this party does its picking, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton.
I'm neutral as long as the person I favor is going to win.
Exactly. So this is one of those situations, and the person she helped actually won the primary and went on to run a very strong race in the general. But now there was this false outrage at her, and I'm going to say something that's extremely controversial here. Were they mad at her because she helped in a primary, or were they mad at her because she's an African American who helped another African American defeat a white privileged candidate?
Always a good question.
Okay, because the outrage was enormous. I was like, no, you guys gotta be kidding. This is one of the best organizers we have in the party. And she's not done anything outside of what this entire party from the national level to the city council level has done.
Guilty of doing what everybody else does.
Exactly, but her we want to burn at the stake. We want to Joan of Arc her quick, Wayne, who has $500,000, 9 out of 10, we are going to end up in some huge scandal, lose seats in the 2020 elections because of people will not trust us, as Democratic Party candidates because of the lack of integrity shown by the chair. That one, you leave him alone. But Aisha, you're going to eviscerate. They gaslighted Aisha. They just torched her right out of there, and they put someone who is very well qualified. But the one who's qualified should have run for that chair position, because that's where her talents and I said this to her face. I said, yeah, you're a great leader, but you are hiding, you're coming to jump on Aisha's head when it's Wayne Goodwin. That is, I do not know if in Catholicism there's the mortal sin and the venial sin. Wayne was the mortal sin. Venial was Aisha, But Aisha was killed, was taken out for her venial sins. Mortal sins, you can hang around for another term.
Okay, I haven't been taking notes. Is there going to be a quiz?
The only quiz is as they continue to condemn our Democratic Party leaders so publicly, are we looking at it as that these were really bad people who did really bad things? Are we looking at it as this is the strategy from the NCGOP? And because NCGOP is famous for interesting ways of winning office, gerrymandering and crew. So ballots appearing and disappearing, Is this one of their things? Or are these genuinely horrible people that we just were so mistaken in electing? What, and are we so gullible as a voting body?
So who got elected?
The Virginia governor. Well, Wayne got elected. To chair. He was unopposed. He got elected unopposed, which is such a horrible thing in a Democratic Party. Nobody, knowing how horrible the situation is, nobody stood up against that. But let me see.
Well, I'm back at Lindbergh giving money to the Democratic Party, but not understanding why it was a problem.
Let me, because you can't send. I'm going to send you I'm going to forward you this. This is for your later perusal and greater understanding of how big the thing, how big the sin was.
You people out there in audience land, we're not going to give this to you, I guess.
Not yet, but
I can put it on the website, I guess.
You can put it out there. Let them see it for themselves, and let them make.
Is this in the news anywhere? Is anybody covering this?
Outside of the little blurbs here and there, nobody is acting like they really give two hoots about it. You know.
I mean, what it sounds like to me is, and you are coming at this from deep inside.
Yes.
And kind of like a previous show that I did with you guys, I feel like I came into the middle of a conversation.
And that's the unfortunateness. You're like,
you were already all wrapped up in everything you were talking about, and I'm going, what?
I am just saying it's been it's been interesting. It's been interesting to see the lack of reaction, the lack of outrage, the lack of movement on this. But we are busy hollering across the line to Virginia and saying, condemn, tell him to get out, leave now. It was 1984. He should have known better. Well, it's 2019, and
we still don't know better.
They still don't know any better.
Same as it ever was.
And if we're going to be outraged, let's be outraged about it all. Let's be outraged about it all, not just little pick and choose incidents here. But
I personally think we could all do with a little less outrage and a little more dispassionate discourse, but not no outrage. Some things deserve lots of outrage, but I mean, I kind of feel like we are in an era where all we have is outrage.
This is what I was thinking on those lines. I was like, there should be a penance here, and my Catholic upbringing is coming out. There should be a penance here. I don't think there should be a burning. I think there should be a penance, because the governor has this awesome power of clemency, and he's able to commutate sentences and all that kind of stuff. Why doesn't he atone for his sin by going now and using his gubernatorial discretion and get some people who do not need to be in that criminal system, get them out, give them life, give them freedom? Because him walking out of office is not going to help anybody.
Are we talking about Northam again?
Yes.
Okay, so you think one of the things he could do to make things better, based on his past, is to use his power of commuting sentences to find some people who are deserving of it and get that done.
And get it done, because his walking out is not going to help one black person. There's not one black person that will be helped by Northam walking out the door right now. But by him signing those commutation sentences, I guarantee you, black people, African Americans are majority in that criminal justice system. Get help somebody. Instead of just walking away and saying, how about saying, look, you know what? I was wrong. I was bad. And I am going to do my best to make sure I help one African-American restore their dignity.
I'll put on at least my devil's advocate makeup and say he would just be accused of diverting attention. He should have done this anyway. Why are you doing it now?
That's exactly, double-edged, but I guarantee the African-American community will say, at least he helped one of us. He helped us get over there. It's like we had Senator Jesse Helms here in North Carolina.
Oh, boy, did we.
Oh, yeah, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. We had Jesse Helms here in North Carolina, okay? Jesse Helms had that tough public talk. But I guarantee you, any African-American who picked up the phone and reached out to him or his office would get action immediately.
That's the reputation.
would get action immediately, whatever their issue is, whether it's a passport or whatever it was, no matter how big or small. If you called Jesse Helms as a minority, you would get what you needed. He had this big, bad, awful, terrible reputation, as a segregationist. So you have to find a way to work it for the benefit of the disenfranchised. The governor of Virginia currently, Northam, walking out right now is not going to help one soul. Yet he has the power to turn around and help so many restore their dignity. That for me, I feel, would be an acceptable apology instead of telling me about Michael Jackson and his moonwalk. That one does not. It's not going to work.
Okay, I can see your point. I don't think it would work because I think it would be considered just craven.
I bet you the ones he let out will
of course they would be happy. Their family would be happy. Their friends would be happy.
Family would be excited.
But he would get almost no credit for it, and it would be it's still you ought to quit.
I know. I think you should give it a try. Give it a try. Okay. See what happens.
Well,
give it a try.
What could it hurt?
What would it hurt to free another soul from that chattel of condemnation? What would it, as an undeserving soul? Because we know the American criminal justice system is horrific and horrendous, and I'm very sure in Virginia. In fact, I know for a fact Virginia has imprisoned a lot of people who do not need to be in there serving double and triple life sentences. They do not need to be in there for non-violent offenses, losing the rest of their living days on this earth.
Yeah, well, not just Virginia, everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. So I think that is the conversation the African-American leadership, I'm not telling them what to do, but it would be great.
You can tell them what to do. That's what being a pundit on a talk show is all about, telling people what to do. No authority behind it.
That would be more uplifting to the African-American community than just telling this man to pack his bags and get out.
Okay. So let me go back to the head. I'll do the quiz on you now.
Okay.
Back to the headline. How bad, how old, how bad, how sure. So we are in an era of people losing their political offices, their jobs, for all kinds of things, but we'll concentrate on Me Too and racism. Racism and Me Too, and a bunch of other things, but those two for right now. A lot of people have lost political offices, jobs. I think anybody's gone to jail. How old? And these things kind of interact with each other, so you can't answer one question without answering the others, but starting looking at them one by one. How old? How far can we go back and find, that happened so long ago, it's not a big deal today. Is there a cutoff point?
I think we went all the way back to Silent Sam. Hey, if we can go back
Silent Sam was last October.
We went all the way back. We cannot tolerate, we cannot ever advocate that it was okay to be a racist. We cannot advocate that, in this period in time, it was okay. It was bad then. It was bad in the 50s. It was bad in the 80s. It was bad in the 90s. Racism was bad. It was bad. It was bad. It was bad. And if we look at it as it was bad, the whole time, that is how we teach our future generation that it is bad, because the young children have questioning minds, and they're going to ask you, wasn't it bad back then? And like, yeah, it was bad then. Wasn't it bad back in the days of pre-Civil War America? Not Civil War, but Civil War America. Was it bad? It's like, yeah, it was bad the whole time. There was no time it was not bad, And for me, it is more important to uplift ourselves as a people, to uplift ourselves and
okay.
do things that are uplifting.
So there isn't a cutoff, a delineation where you can say, before this time if you felt this way, you were a product of your environment.
No,
that's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse.
I'll tell you about my two most woke moments that I can remember.
Okay.
One, as a high school student reading a book called Black Like Me. Remember that book?
I remember that book.
Yeah. A white man.
Yep.
It wasn't makeup. He used chemicals.
To tan his skin.
Tan his skin, and then he had to shave his hair because he was blonde or something.
Yeah.
He didn't have other African features. He didn't have larger lips or broad noses or anything like that. Mm-hmm. He probably looked like a white guy with very dark skin. But yeah, mixed race person could look like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, he went to live in black communities and experienced the racism of the era, which would have been the 60s, and then wrote the book about it. And then I read it and said, "Oh my God."
Oh yeah. I have the
why do I have to have a white guy tell me about it?
Because you wouldn't hear it. It's like a lot. There are many places in white society where they've become numb to the pointing out of racism from the African American person. You know, if I told you that when I walk into a room, only 2 or 3 people will talk to me. But if I walk into a room with a white person, they will come and talk to the white person. And then, inadvertently, I think the best, I am currently dating a Caucasian. You've met Alan Longman.
Yeah.
And I think Alan's life has been so transformed by just going to places with me, like going to the store, grocery store, or if we meet people from that I knew before they knew Alan, before they met Alan. In fact, I met Alan through me. But when we go to a place, they will walk up and they will talk to Alan. They will not talk to me. And Alan is like, "Did they not see you there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they saw me." But that is the life of a African American. We go to a store, and I think I've been offered, when women think another woman is in crisis or in a bad situation, they have this way of saying, "Hey, I can call 911. You don't have to leave with him," And I say, "But I want to go home."
Okay, so at some point,
standard,
at some point in his past, when he was not dating a black woman, and I don't know anything about his history. I'll dig it out from
New York, Long Island person, didn't traveled Navy man, but he was very, very sheltered as to the plight of the African American.
So then I will guess that there's a point in his past where he would be the person who would talk to the white person and not you.
And I don't think it was on purpose. Alan does not have a racist bone in his body, but there are certain things he will do and say, and I go, "Alan, you can't say that. You can't do that."
Sorry, Alan, we're talking about you without you being able to.
He's
respond.
going to watch. He's going to watch this, but it's that being numb to the cry for equality.
Sure.
Hearing the cry for equality from the African American, or from whether it's African American, or from the Hispanic. From even till today, the Native American is still crying for that. Hey, we need to be treated as human beings and equals. We are so numb to it. When you hear directly from the disenfranchised, you're more apt to hear it when it comes from a member of your own racial society. You're like, you know what? We have a little bit more than our share of this plate right here.
Yes.
You'd be like, really? You take a second look and say, hey, maybe we do. And I think I really saw that in organizing with the women. They really made sure there was equality, that no one was occupying too much space in the room. We all had our equal share of work. We all were given validation for our contributions, regardless of our race or religion or background. But that is a very rare and very unique situation. Many times we have to go to court, go to lawsuits. This is where I think in North Carolina, the same number of votes it took to elect 2 Democrats, the millions of votes it took to elect 2 Democratic Congress people, is the same as what it took to elect all the Republican Congress people. You know, the same 2 million equal, like 4 million equals 2 seats, 4 million equals 7 seats.
You're getting some heat behind you there.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to have to call it because I have to help my son out.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. This has been great. And we will do some more soon.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So go take care of your son, and I will talk to you later. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So just me for a few minutes. I was going to tell Elizabeth the second woke moment of my past. And it was watching an episode of South Park, the cartoon show. You ever watch that? And one of the characters, I don't have all the characters' names embedded in my head well enough. One of the characters had a young black friend. And I don't remember the episode. I don't remember the details of the episode. I can't tell you exactly how it got to this point. But at some point, it was about race. It was about understanding race, about understanding where the young black friend's background and history and the current situation came from. And the white kid, don't know if it was Kyle or which one it was. I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I watched that. He arrived at a moment where he said, I don't understand. I don't understand what happened. I don't have perfect empathy with what your situation is. I don't get it. And the young black friend says, then you got it. I don't know if I'm quoting the program very accurately or not, but the black friend, as I understood, the black friend's point was, you're a white kid, you're not going to get it. Understanding that you can't get it, that you don't get it, is getting it as far as you're going to get it. So, how old? I was going to give Elizabeth some heat for her friend Alan for recognizing that most of his past, he didn't get this. He would be the one going into the room and not talking to the black person, but talking to the white companion, at least first. Even if he wasn't racist about it, that would just be the way he was brought up. A product of his era. Difficult things to use as any kind of excuse, but having some validity. So, there he was with his background, and she is forgiving it because he is a close friend. Where does Northam get any kind of forgiveness? Considering where he came from, what he has done, what his changes have been. 1984, is that far enough back that he can have made up for it in just the life that he has lived since then and the things he's done? Well, he's not getting that credit yet. How bad? So it was how old, how bad, how sure? How bad? In the Me Too stuff, the allegations of rape, of sexual molestation, things like that, they're bad. Really bad. Dressing up in a Klan outfit or in blackface, or whether it was just the Michael Jackson thing that he admitted to, not as bad. Bad, certainly through today's eyes, pretty darn bad. Through my old man, white privilege eyes, no, I did not feel. I would look at that picture. If you'd have showed me that picture and in no context whatsoever, just showed me that picture, I would have said, what? Oh, it looks like a stupid thing to do. What, 1984? Oh, yeah, okay, probably a stupid thing to do. And that's the other thing about that picture is we have gotten no context about that picture. None. No one has explained what they were doing. it looks very much to me like they were probably at a Halloween party. And the two people, whether it was Northam or not, the two people thought, well, wouldn't it be great if one of us dressed up in a Klan outfit and one dressed up as Elizabeth described it, a black dandy, and went together to this party? Wouldn't that be fun? Well, certainly no points for sensitivity, but 1985, 1984, we were just kind of starting to get it. We white people were just kind of starting to get it back then. And his environment, maybe not so much. How old? How bad? How sure? So Elizabeth was sure he did it. And looking at him, making his denials, she got a very different impression than I did. That, yeah, he did it. And I was looking at him saying, gosh, seems kind of authentic to me. He went to that Michael Jackson story that he didn't have to go to because nobody knew about that, and said, this is where my memory is clear, and I don't remember the Klan thing, blackface thing. So it's not like I just forgot, because it's the same era. And if I had done something like that, well, here's something that I did was similar, and I remember it vividly, and I would have remembered. So he's either got it a good reason for not remembering it because it didn't happen, or he's lying. We can't tell. That's of course the bottom line of just about any one of these things, that it's one person's word against another. We can't tell. We don't have the videotape. We don't know. I would, this story is not over. We're in the middle of it. And, we're being real newsy with this episode of the Triangle Talk Show. We're going to learn more tomorrow, more the next day. Northam may quit, may not. I think that, unlike Elizabeth, I think he'll be totally ineffective as a governor if he doesn't quit. And that divorces the question of whether he should quit because of what he did versus whether he should quit because everyone is piling on so bad. He's not going to be able to get anything done, so he might as well quit and move on to something else in his life. But to me, without answering the fundamental questions of where the hell that picture came from, what was its story, what was behind that, we got no context from it. I'm assuming it's like a Halloween party, but it could have been something totally different. And it just got tossed in there. And then finally, there is the source. This is the website that initially launched that picture and then the following accusations against the Lieutenant Governor Fairfax. This is Big League Politics. They want me to disable my ad blocker. I think I'm going to keep my ad blocker. It's always described by the media as a right-wing, kind of a hot button right-wing website. They claim not to be. They claim to be. I mean, I think they'll accept the hot button. They're somewhat outrageous. But if you go down and look at their own statement about what they are, they call themselves a fast-paced news site with a team of top-level investigative reporters, filmmakers, and citizen journalists all over the country. They say that they're not Republican, they're not Democrat. They're road warriors in the good fight for journalism. They say that the mainstream media and corporate journalism outlets are bought off by shady interests, and they don't tell the truth. They got sick and tired of it. And that's why most of our writers are completely incapable of getting a job anywhere else. Okay. Let's see. The prevailing themes of big league politics form a new American political identity, emphasizing economic nationalism, bipartisan patriotism. America is a country with its own values and interests. I haven't read this before, so I'm just going over it myself. And they have the, we forge a new path, bringing together conservatives, progressives, libertarians, independents, and all those who believe that America should be put first. Well, America first is not a progressive concept, not a very independent concept. It may be a libertarian concept, certainly is a conservative concept, the America first thing. So I'll put a link to Big League Politics on the Triangle Talk Show website for this episode so that you can look at it for yourself and see if they are independent as they think, or if they're, well, here's another clue. Look at the menu line. It starts with Home and Campaign 2020. Those are neutral. The Swamp, the Deep State. I think we know where that's coming from. Culture, the Deplorables, the Snowflakes. Okay, I'm the Snowflake. Hollywood. Guns, no drop down on guns, just guns. National security, no drop down. Economy, watch, and subscribe. I don't know. Top level investigative reporters. If you say so. Kind of like this show, top level investigative reporting. Thank you, Elizabeth, and sorry you had to get called away, but I could hear your son was in some distress. She explained that her son is a special needs kid, so you could hear him in the background a little bit needing her attention. And there we go. How old? Episode 48, Fairness, I guess. February 4th, 2019. How old? How bad? How sure? Did we find out? I don't think so. I'm Gary Pierce. Thanks for watching or listening. Triangle Talk Show is available on just about every... I always forget to do this, so I'll do it at the very end just to get it out there. Triangle Talk Show is available on just about every podcast app. Not on Stitcher. Maybe someday we'll get on some of those, but anything that connects to iTunes, all the usual apps, and we're here on YouTube video in real time when we do a show, most of the time. And the website is triangletalkshow.com. We're on Twitter. What is the Twitter thing? Talk Triangle, I think, because I didn't set up the Twitter account very well. And then they assigned me this name, Talk Triangle. And I thought, oh, well, that's okay. That's pretty cool. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. You're welcome to join. It's currently thoroughly moderated because I thought a show like this will bring the harebrains out of the woodwork, and I wanted to see what they were trying to do before I let it out there. Turns out it hasn't brought anybody out of the woodwork, but maybe someday. And because I have a feeling of power, a sense of power. Okay, going to go away. This show was put together at the very last minute. I'm glad Elizabeth was available to come talk to me about these issues. And looks like we could have gone lots longer. It's not over with. So probably we'll come up on another Triangle Talk Show. Maybe we'll kind of find a more North Carolina-centric thread to pull on that issue too. We'll see. But Virginia's, right next door. They're our neighbors. All right, going away. Talk to you later. Over and out.